Hello and welcome to Brian Lomax Movie Talk. Once again, we were meant to be on Steve's channel, The Lawn Gnome, to do our third part of our DC animated movies series, in which we discuss another set of films from that series. But yeah, we're back again to discuss it. I'm going to hand you over to Steve because, like I say, it should have been on his channel, but it ain't. So there you go. Steve, over to you, mate.
Thanks a lot, Brian. And let me just tell everybody who is in fact watching and who will be watching in the future, Brian and I are going to, at some point in time before the next live show, try and figure out what has been going on when it comes to our live show, because it seems to only happen when we try and put this DC show together. And it's just getting very frustrating at this point in time. So I promise that we are going to do everything that we can to make sure that everything goes back to the way it is. Not that there's anything wrong with Brian hosting. He loves this stuff just as much as I do. But also, you know, on top of that, unfortunately, Melissa over at the Bookish Babbler was not able to join us. And to a certain extent, I'm a little upset because we were going to wish her live a happy belated birthday because she just celebrated her birthday. And so did my wife. So, of course, it was a very special day for me. But nah, she was really upset that she had a family emergency and couldn't make it. But she said to me that if I have to end up, meaning her, have to end up leaving again because of a family emergency for the next episode, I'm going to be very upset because it's all Batman next time, everybody. Just a little tease right there. So, yeah. So, welcome to the DC Animated Film Up live show, episode number 3. And we are, of course, picking this point in time because we are actually getting a double dose of releases from Warner Brothers and the DC Animated Universe. Not only last month, towards the end, did we get the 28th film in the library, which is Teen Titans, The Judas Contract, but the brand new Classics collection that just started with the Adam West Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders is giving us Vixen the movie. It's coming out next week, and that is interesting because it includes animated versions of the current DC television universe on the CW. So to see Arrow and the Flash and Firestorm all animated is going to be very interesting. So it was only right that we put the third episode in the middle of the two releases. But that means there will be a fourth show later on this year, tackling the third series of films, or the third book, as I like to say, but we're not going to go entirely in chronological order. This was Brian's idea, and it makes perfect sense. So today we're going to be talking about all of the DCU films in the third block, sans Batman films. So we've got 4 films to discuss today, and I'm very interested to hear how this is going to go down because according to what you have said to me, Brian, you're not the biggest fan of some of these, particularly when it comes to the Superman films. So I'm excited to see your take.
I will say this up front. Of all the DC animated movies I've seen, my 2 least favorite are in the selection we've got today. So
okay, so let's just get started, since we've got at maximum of 2 hours to get this all done. So we're going to start off with the film All-Star Superman. Now, this is a movie that has a lot of interesting things in it. This was actually the last animated film to be released before, unfortunately, we lost one of the best storytellers in the DC animated universe under Bruce Timm, and that, of course, is Dwayne McDuffie. He passed away right around the time that this film was released, and he had a very big role in writing this film. Of course, it's also based on the Grant Morrison graphic novel series, and this also was one of the more skeptical films for me when I first saw it, merely because of the fact that it was the first one in the library that was given a PG rating. So we went from PG-13 to PG. So I was a little nervous in regards to this film. So before I give you guys my take, Brian, I'd like to open up the floor to you because I've been doing so much talking already. It's time for you to take the floor.
Yeah, this is a bit of a weird one because I went into this one skeptical simply because I don't like Grant Morrison, and this is, of course, an adaptation, I believe, of a Grant Morrison thing.
That it is.
Superman for All Seasons or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So, yeah, knowing that, I went into this not expecting the right lot, to be honest. But I'd say the biggest thing with this, with regards to how I feel about it, is it feels very episodic. It feels like a bunch of shorts, a bunch of Superman shorts that have kind of been strung together to make this feature-length film. What it feels like, actually, is a series of comic books. So, you know, you read a series, you get a particular title, and different writers come in to do different parts and whatnot, and that's kind of what this feels like. And it just feels very disjointed, I think. That's not to say there isn't stuff in here to like. I think there is, and I'll say up front, this isn't one of the films in this list that is my bottom two. So I did like this one, but I don't love it. Like I say, that's nothing against Dwayne McDuffie, because he's adapting material. I think what he did with Crisis on Two Earths.
Yes.
I thought he did a fantastic job on that. That's one of my favorites still. But here, yeah, he's struggling to condense what seems to be like a load of comic books into this thing that's got so many different strands going off in different places, and they never really quite seem to coalesce in a satisfying way, I don't think.
Okay. I mean, I see exactly where you're going, and I can definitely agree with you in the means of it feeling episodic. And I also watched a lot of the special features on this specific video because I was very curious to see behind the scenes of how they came to fruition, because Grant Morrison was one of the people that have obviously talked about it because it was based on his story. And there was a lot of stuff in the comic book that was actually left out of this film. And one of the ones that was really intriguing to me was the fact that during this point in time in the series, Superman goes to Bizarro World, and he actually has like a very heart-to-heart moment with Bizarro, which is very intriguing to me, and I'm really surprised that it wasn't in there. But for me as a whole, I actually think that this is one of those movies that a lot of people just don't really get, because I personally like it a lot. And the reason why I like it so much is because it has such a different feeling the other films that we have gotten so far, because all the other films, probably besides Justice League New Frontier, this one was something that played more so less on the action and more so on the drama of what Superman is going through. But at the same time, I feel that this is a true film for a true Superman appreciator, because it captures so many of the highlights of the lore that is Superman. I mean, while I was watching this movie, I mean, the first time I saw it, I didn't really like it that much, but the more I watch it, the more it grows on me. You have everything that there's a couple of nuances there that take tribute to the George Reeves Superman television show. There's something in there that takes on the Christopher Reeves Superman film. There's the old golden age of comic books as well. Lots of stuff in there that I feel that makes Superman Superman, because he's completely the opposite of Batman. He is not a dark and brooding character. Now, granted, Bruce Timm, I feel, has brought out the best in Superman until Zack Snyder got his hands on him and just made him even more darker and more epic. But I really feel that it's a real movie for the true Superman appreciator and fan. And dare I say, it sometimes got me a little bit emotional because of the fact that Superman, let's face it, he's dying in a very, not like in The Death of Superman, in an action-packed way, but more so on a very subtle manner, and it's him literally reflecting and just scratching things off of his bucket list. And the way that
one of the things there as well, actually, that I did like, which I wasn't expecting them to do, is that he does die at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I kept waiting for that miracle cure. I kept waiting for some scientist to come on and say, well, due to the way that your body absorbs the sun's rays, they've been storing up so much power like a battery, and now you're going to get better. And, the typical kind of that they use to bring Superman back from the dead or whatever. But no, he dies, he goes off, he dies. And that's the end of that. And it's a self-contained story that, has the balls to do what it says it's going to do, which is to kill Superman. So I did like that element about it.
Yeah, and that was one of the other things that I really appreciated. I think it was the fact that he was sick, and it shows you that even it goes all the way back to Superman Doomsday. The line from Lex Luthor at the very beginning of the movie, in the end, even gods must die. And this is Superman. This is like the most powerful man in the universe, and yet he got and that's what's even more interesting. He got too much of a good thing. He absorbed too much of the yellow sun. And because of that, it killed him. It was like Icarus going to the sun. That's what it basically was. And it was also these little things that he went through on these little adventures that really had you embrace the human side of Superman, and it tossed the superhero and the fantasy element of him to the side. Because when you do get some of that in his story, like, it's funny because, excuse me, the fact that the story is so human, the superhero elements of the film don't come off like they really belong there. Like, I thought that fight with Parasite in the middle of the movie was just so out of place. And the whole thing that ended with Lex Luthor and Superman in the final battle, while I really did appreciate the outcome, I thought that all of the elements that led up to the outcome were just completely over-exaggerated, and it just didn't fit.
I see, while I liked the outcome of Superman actually dying, I didn't like what they did with Lex Luthor, turning him around, because I think it cheapens Superman and what he does and what he stands for. Because they essentially say that because Lex is now seeing through Superman's eyes, that's essentially what changes him. It's what makes him suddenly turn around. But in doing that, you're also saying that, okay, it's Superman's powers that make him who he is, that make him good. And that's not the case. So to me, I don't like that. I don't like that Lex seeing the molecules in the way that Supes does changes his worldview. That it betrays that character, and it also betrays Superman's character, because it, like I say, it equates.
I never really
Superman's
actually thought about it that way, to be honest with you. You cut out a little bit, so I don't know if I got the end of what you were saying.
Yeah, because it just equates Superman's goodness to the fact that he has powers, and I don't like that.
I see exactly where you're coming from. Yeah, that's why this movie is so hit or miss. It's in this case, it's one of those where you either like it or you don't, and I really don't feel that there is much of a middle ground as I would like there to be. I mean, there are some really, I think that the whole segment of him giving Lois powers for her birthday was such a nice thing for me, and it was only because of the fact that it was time for Lois to live in Superman's world as Superman for a little bit. I just liked that for some reason.
I see. I thought that was so badly handled.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like going back to what I was saying before about the episodic nature of it, there's a few things I wrote down just to, like, they jumped out at me, and it's like when Lois gets paranoid, there's this moment where she gets really paranoid and she runs and she grabs that gun, and it's this really kind of prolonged sequence in which she's running about the place and trying to hit Superman with this gun, and I'm like, by the time it had finished, all we learned from that scene, it seemed to me that the only purpose of having all of that stuff going on was so that we could learn that Superman is now immune to kryptonite. That's literally because the paranoia stuff. Once we dealt with the fact that, oh, Superman, is immune to kryptonite, he reveals that, yeah, this is what caused your paranoia. Boom, it's done, it's gone. That's it. We never come back to it. So a piece of information that could have essentially been given in a line of dialogue from the likes of what's his face, who's the professor guy at Star Labs, who's always
right. Yeah, Dr. Leo Quinton is his name.
Yeah. So when Superman came back from his battle at the Sun, and he finds out from the doctor that he's dying, that very same doctor could have just dropped a line that, oh, there is one plus though. You are now immune to kryptonite. Boom. There you go. It's done. I'm going to save myself the trouble of having this really long sequence, which builds this air of mystery and suspense. Oh, why is Lois paranoid? And then the answer is actually pretty lame and anticlimactic, and like has no bearing on the rest of the plot. Like I say, it's designed specifically to get this piece of information out about him being immune to kryptonite. So for me, really needless. And then, like I say, playing into the episodic nature of it, that's the kind of thing I could imagine in a comic book where you would end this month's issue with Lois, going off the rails, being all paranoid and like, oh no, what's going on? You come back next week, the issue's solved within the first few panels of the next issue, and then they move on with the next story for that week. So it kind of feels like that in a movie. It's fine for a comic book because you want to end on a cliffhanger, but in a movie, it doesn't stack up with the rest of what's going on.
Right.
And going back to the scenes you were on about with the costume and stuff, there was a line of dialogue that jumped out at me as well that was just really tacky. We've just seen Superman give her this costume. Right. We know he's made her this costume. She knows he's made her this costume. And he asks her, and I quote word for word, "Does the costume I made for you fit?" And it's like, surely, does your costume fit? Would have been a more kind of realistic line of dialogue than, does the costume I made for you fit? It's like I say, again, it's that mentality that it's almost as if you've come back. So you've had last month's issue on the comic book stands where she got the costume, which people may not have read. So they jump into this issue and they need that line of dialogue in which Soup says, does the costume I made for you fit? So that we're then filled in as to, oh, right, okay, clued in, know what's going on. Don't need to read the last issue to figure out that's where she got the costume. So it's silly little things like that. And for me, stuff like that jumps out, and it's always a bugbear. As someone who tries to write scripts myself, that's a line of dialogue I would have jettisoned at the first draft. So, and one more line of dialogue.
No, please go for it. I'm just going to grab something while you're talking so I can listen to you in 2 seconds.
So one more is from Lois. And it's where basically they've just been on their little adventure in which those two dudes who, again, they show up, they've got super
Yeah, yeah. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, I have no clue who those guys are, right? So unless you're I'm sitting there thinking, unless you're a diehard Superman fan, these guys mean absolutely nothing to you, and they do nothing to try and introduce them to an audience who wouldn't know who they are from the comic books. I'm assuming they are characters from the comic books.
I would probably think so too.
Exactly. You know more about DC Comics than I do, and even you are saying like, yeah, I'd assume you. In other words, you don't have a clue who these guys are, and they come in and they talk to Lois and to Supes, and Supes talks back to them as if we, the audience, should know who they are. Well, you know what? I don't. And as a result, I don't care about anything they're doing. And then they have this little weird adventure that feels like some kind of school playground romp. And then Lois's powers start to dwindle.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, today was perfect. We did everything I ever wanted to do. Really, Lois?
Yeah. That's
in a bucket list of things to do with your life.
Unless they need to elaborate. They should have elaborated more. Like, this is everything that I wanted to do as a superhero.
It's just lines of dialogue like that, man. It's just get a grip.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask you about them, and that whole thing with the Ultra Sphinx was just I don't know. Now I'm starting to understand it. I mean, if it wasn't for the overall vibe and the nostalgia factor of Superman, I would totally be on board with you entirely. Because I mean, like, you have that, and then you also had that whole thing that I don't even know about these Kryptonians that came to try and take over the planet. I mean, I was wondering if that was actually something that it was obviously in the graphic novel, I would assume, but was this like a tribute to Superman 2 with General Zod, or maybe Jax-Ur and Mala from the episode of the Superman the Animated Series? And like I said, the Parasite fight is really like out of place for me there. Like, I have no idea why Parasite even shows up in that movie. I mean, well, let's see if there are some things that I can convince you in regards to possible positive points. Because you're being all negative Nancy here. No offense, it's great. This is making great.
I like to start off. I like to start off with my negatives and then work my way to the positive, so that we end on a positive note.
I personally love the color palette. I think that it's bright and it's inviting, and that's everything that you want to feel when you're watching something that's really just paying tribute to Superman and all of the mythos. I loved all of the little Easter eggs that they threw in there. Like, they said, look up there in the sky. They had the shrunken city of Kandor. Like, they had a lot of things that Superman fans love in regards to the mythos. There also is a very good cast. I thought that getting James Denton to voice Superman, I mean, I don't even know who he is, but he had, you want to know, but however, he had that Tim Daly vibe, that very inviting Superman voice, whether it was Tim Daly or George Newbern or whoever had done the Superman voice before. James Denton was a good addition. I thought getting Christina Hendricks as Lois, I thought that she was a perfect choice. Loved her. I thought that Anthony LaPaglia as Lex Luthor was a good choice too. I mean, Lex Luthor has gotten many voices. I mean, everybody who knows Lex Luthor in animation always says that Clancy Brown is the best, but they did a good job with Anthony LaPaglia, and they had a couple of other famous faces thrown in everywhere. I mean, they had John DiMaggio as Samson, one of the weirdos that came to fight Superman. You had Ed Asner as Perry White, which was really cool, and you also had who else? Matthew Gray Gubler from Criminal Minds, who also has shown up in future animated projects for DC. So to see him there, that was also a really cool thing to see. So they had some good voice casting, good color palette. I also thought that score was fantastic as well from Christopher Drake. Christopher Drake has scored a lot of those films already, and I thought that that was a very nice take. And also, this is actually the 10th one in the whole library. This was the 10th film, so I thought it was really cool to get a movie like this on a nice round number. But I can totally see where you're coming from in terms of the plot of the story. So totally understand that.
I like the color palette. I agree. I mean, I never read the comic book, but I saw images from it, and it kind of, the images I thought were quite enticing. They feed like a nostalgic sensibility. I think it kind of has that sense of nostalgia about it. It takes you back to like a 50s kind of era Superman. Yeah. I've got no problems with any of the voice cast. There's no one in this who kind of put a foot wrong with regards to voice work. I thought they were all well cast.
Great.
I liked as well. I did like the animation. You know, I thought it was quite fluid. I liked the designs of some of the characters. I wasn't too keen on the designs of others, but I particularly liked whenever they did some kind of monster work, like the monster at the beginning that was kind of Lex's creation. I thought that was really well done, very kind of sinister. And they kind of repeated that a little bit with Parasite. Parasite looked quite a bit like that monster at the beginning.
Solaris was good too. I thought they did a good job with the artwork on Solaris.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, there's a few moments like I like when Lex doesn't care about going to the electric chair because he feels fulfilled. Like he's fulfilled his mission, which is to kill Superman. And he just ceases to care about whether he lives or dies, because as far as he's concerned, he's won. Little moments like that, you know, that's what I expect from Lex. Whereas, like I say, when we got to the end, not so much. There's a few other things in it that I didn't quite like, which is like I'm not one of these people who says, "Oh, Superman can't kill." It's just so this doesn't bother me with regards to this film. But I'm just calling it out for people who constantly say about Man of Steel that, "Oh, Superman doesn't kill," and all this lot. Superman killed a bunch of prisoners. I'm sorry, but he did. In that scene with Parasite, he freezes a load of them prisoners, and then Parasite basically smashes through them. Well, sorry, Soups, mate. So yeah, people who are quick to say that, oh, Snyder just has made Superman kill, whatever. There was another moment in here, which is Superman kills Metallo. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know if Metallo has some kind of thing where he has other bodies stacked up and they just put his consciousness in or whatever. But with regards to how this film was, not giving you any of that knowledge, yeah, he basically just rips Metallo apart really casually and then walks off. And it's like, you just killed him. He may be some kind of artificial life form, but he still has self-awareness. You know, he's still a so yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Superman killed him. But like I say, that's not a criticism of this film. It's more just pointing out to all the naysayers, because I love to do that whenever I get the chance. People who naysay Man of Steel, it's always good to yeah. Other thing is, let's have a look. There was one random thing that I noticed, and I thought they were going to come back to it, and I don't know if I missed something, but Superman and Lois are having a little bit of an argument underneath this bridge.
Right.
And then a piece of the bridge falls off and hits the concrete. And I'm like, one, why with all your super hearing, Superman, did you not even notice that? Did you not even go, oh, what's going on here? That bridge looks like it's about to come down. But two, they never come back to it in the entire film. So they do this thing as if it's setting something up, like some big villains coming along, and that was like the first Tremors or something. But then nothing. And I'm like, what a random little moment to just stick in the film. But yeah, that's pretty much it for all my notes. Beyond that, as negative as I've been, I was entertained by this. I liked the bursts of action. For the most part, I liked Lex and his schemes in this. I think because of its episodic nature, if there was a section in it that was really kind of bugging me, it was okay because it would only be around for 5 minutes before we moved on to the next episode, so to speak. And there were enough little episodes in this for me to enjoy, and the action was quite enjoyable for me to say, actually, you know what? On the whole, it's a good film, but only just. It just scrapes through with what I would consider a good film rating. So
I see where you're coming from. I really do. I mean, if I'm going to rate this movie, I personally would give it, based on my rating system, I'd give it a 3.5 stars out of 4, only just because of the fact that I don't know, it's just like when I watch it, I just feel like a kid watching Superman. It just brings me back to those days when I was little and just loved watching Superman, even on the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons of the Super Friends, because it was the goofy costumes of some of the people in the film, like the Kryptonians and Atlas and Samson. Like, it reminded me of those old Superman cartoons, like even from the Max Fleischer days, and that's why I'm drawn to this movie so much. It's just because it just captures the Superman mythos and the true nostalgia of Superman's history in a nice little bottle. That's the way I look at it, to me, and that's why I think it's one of the more well done, not necessarily the most perfect, but definitely one of the more well-constructed films, just for the sake of having a truly good and enjoyable overall experience about Superman.
Yeah, maybe I need to give it another watch. I've only seen this the once, which was for this program. But yeah, as it stands at the moment, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. So.
Okay, sounds good to me. So now let's move on to the next film in our group. And speaking of interlocking stories, we already saw one in Batman Gotham Knight when we did our first showing, and that, of course, was to bridge the gap between the 2 Christopher Nolan Batman films. But now we are in a point in time where there's a new DC comic book film coming out in 2011, and it is Green Lantern, a movie that a lot of DC comic book purists choose to forget. One that I still have a soft spot for because I appreciate some of the things that are in there rather than a lot of the stuff that's in there that I don't like. But so of course they had to capitalize on the promotion of the new live action film, and that's Green Lantern Emerald Knights. This is no way connected to the Ryan Reynolds film, but just because they were trying to promote the fact that they were having a Green Lantern movie, let's make an animated movie about Green Lantern. And it's another 6 interlocking stories. Not done by any independent animators. This time we have a trio of directors. We have Christopher Berkeley, we have Jay Oliva, who had done a lot of work already and is still doing work with the DC animated group today. But we also have Lauren Montgomery back directing a couple of the segments as well. It was 2 for each of them. And this finally gives us the Green Lantern that should have been in live action. If he was just a little bit younger, I would always say that he, you know who I'm talking about, Nathan Fillion, he to me is Hal Jordan. I don't care what anybody says. He just knows how to play that character so wonderfully. Why they didn't have him as a live action Green Lantern, I will just never know. But we also we have Jason Isaacs playing Sinestro instead of Victor Garber like they had in First Flight. And also another great group of cast members, including Arnold Vosloo, Henry Rollins, and even, and this is the part that really impresses me, we have the late wrestling star Rowdy Roddy Piper as the voice of Bofunga, which is something that they really tried to play up. And I will say, when we talk about the individual stories, that's one of my personal favorites. So what do you think of this film?
Of all the movies we've reviewed so far in these 3 parts, I mean, this is the 11th, obviously. This is my least favorite. Okay,
I'm curious.
Yeah, I got so bored with this. So bored. It's just noisy, and because again it suffers from that episodic kind of thing that it's got going, because we're looking at loads of different stories. So it's essentially just a bunch of shorts cobbled together. Now the thing with Gotham Knights is that each of those 6 stories that were in Gotham Knight revolved around one character, Batman, you know, and they all delved into a different aspect of his character, a different aspect of his psyche, or a different aspect of the way people viewed him in society. The trouble with this film is that in each segment, you're not just dealing with, say, Hal Jordan. We're not getting like several different stories that all look at Hal Jordan in different ways. We get stories that are all around different members of the Green Lantern Corps. So just as you start to warm to any character that they're focusing on, boom, it's over, and we move on to someone else. And like the story with what's her face, Lyra. So yes. Lyra's first mission. That character and that story that was going on with her homeworld and her father and her brother or stepbrother, I think he's a brother, and the woman who had kind of married her father, all of that stuff could be really interesting. It could be a feature film within itself. You know, we've already had the Hal Jordan film because we had Green Lantern First Flight. So I either stick with Hal Jordan if okay, you're releasing this thing because, you know, the Green Lantern live action film's coming out, so stick with Hal Jordan. But instead, following all these different characters, it breaks it up too much. Some of the stories feel really underwritten as a result. The whole Kilowog story didn't do it for me at all. It felt like so many military films that we've seen where you've got a hard-ass drill sergeant. You drill, you know, you hate him at first because he's really hard on his soldiers and whatnot, and then you realize at the end that actually it was all because, you know, he really deep down he cares and he wants to make sure they're the best of the best of the best. And I'm just like, I so don't care about this right now. a lot of the action sequences in it, save for some of the stuff that, once again, Lauren Montgomery directed. I think she knows how to direct action. When I see action sequences that she's directed throughout these series of films, I always seem to think she's got a better handle on the action than the other directors. But other than that, a lot of the action it's just noise. It's just space battles in which people are firing lasers out of rings at each other, and there's no real weight to what's going on because they're in space, you know? They're in just a black void. So it feels, yeah, just really low on impact to me. I just wasn't that impressed, to be honest.
Well, I would definitely fall into the same realm as you, and I do agree with you. There are some of these little segments that are just flat out boring. And quite frankly, from an animation standpoint, I think that Lyra is probably the best one. It's just beautiful when you watch it and you see the action sequences. But the problem is that one just tires you out. And by the time you officially finish Lyra's story, sometimes you just don't want to go on, and you do not want to see the others, because I personally feel that my favorite one is Mogo Doesn't Socialize, because I think it's funny. I think that whole story with Mogo and Bafunga is one of the most hilarious things, because it sort of has an Aesop fable theme about it, you know, like the grasshopper and the ant, you know. It's like one of those kinds of stories, and I just found the humor in it to be very funny, and I thought the story itself was really interesting. And I also loved the first Lantern story because I was curious to see how the Green Lantern Corps actually started. And for me, I find more entertainment in the segments that take place in between the 6 stories, because we have to remember that there's this other big story. It's basically the Green Lantern Arisia officially getting ready to fight in her first battle, and she's in one of the stations, and she's talking to all of the other veteran Green Lanterns. I mean, she talks with Kilowog, she talks with Sinestro, she's talking with Hal Jordan, and she's basically starting to learn the true reason what it is to be a Green Lantern. And I thought that it was really cute to see, like, these Green Lanterns just being casual with one another. You know, I found that fun because you see the camaraderie of the Green Lantern Corps, which I feel that up until that point we really didn't see much of. I feel that we got a little bit of that in First Flight, when we even had the Green Lantern Corps, when John Stewart is the Green Lantern in the Justice League television series. Yes, we've seen Green Lanterns. We saw Gallius, Tomar-Ray, we saw Kilowog, but we never really saw the true unification that is the Green Lantern Corps. And I also feel that the last segment with Atrocitus is a very... I didn't like that one at all, because there was just so much of a tease towards the Yellow Lantern Corps and the turning of Sinestro. That's one of the few things that I don't like. It's like, I don't like the fact that we're now officially seeing Sinestro as a Green Lantern all the time now. We all know that he's going to be a Yellow Lantern. We know he's going rogue. We know he's going to yield the yellow power ring. We know eventually he's going to have his own corps. So why are we focusing on that? Why are we not focusing on this? The same could be said about the CGI Green Lantern animated series. I was so angry that it got canceled after 1.5 seasons, because we saw Sinestro as a Green Lantern, possibly transitioning to the... I want to see Sinestro fighting the Green Lantern Corps. That's what I want. And yeah, I just feel that...
They keep trying to... I think they're trying to build up the sense of tragedy that comes... You know, it's like the Two-Face kind of thing, you know? Two-Face is one of the most tragic characters in Batman's Rogues Gallery, because he was his friend. You know, he knew him on a personal level. And I think that they've latched onto that here with Sinestro, and in recent years they've like, let's really delve into the history of Sinestro as a Green Lantern before he kind of went to the other side, because then we can really make him more of a tragic kind of figure, someone. And it just, I don't care. It's like, we all, like you say, we know he's going to get there. We know he's going to be a Yellow Lantern. Just get on with it. Stop dragging your heels.
Yeah.
One of the things that I struggle with is it's the powers. It's just like the first story is of this first Green Lantern, and he's the first one to come up with a construct. You know, when he's fighting in battle, and he comes up with this construct, and it's a sword, and it's like, we've just seen all of these Green Lanterns shooting laser beams out of their rings. You cannot tell me that a sword is going to be more effective than shooting a laser beam out of your ring. It just it just grates on my nerves. The way they use the powers. It's just, I don't know what the words are for it, but it just seems stupid to me that you have the ability to fire something as like that, and then they act like, oh, he's come up with a sword. Oh no, now he can turn the tide of battle. You know what I mean? They've been in this huge battle with these people who are wiping them out, and then all of a sudden he manages to create this sword. Now we can win.
I see where you're going with it.
Yeah, I don't understand that mentality.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
also, sorry.
What I was going to say was, for me, it's more so about the origin of the Green Lantern and less about what he did. It's that one is just one of my favorites, but I totally understand. It's like, how is a sword going to defeat this evil? You know, like how? You know,
just minimize the threat a bit. You know what I mean? Instead of always having to be this big galactic thing that could wipe out, you know, half the galaxy. Just to scale it down a bit. If you're doing a story about the first Lantern, okay, if you're only going to make his first construct be a sword, then put him in a situation in which a sword would actually be useful, you know?
Yeah.
But another thing that I didn't like was the whole spin on the creation. Kind of, I don't like saying myth, because to me it isn't a myth. But it's like, there's a line of dialogue where they say, before there was order, there was chaos. And it's like, no. It's like, I can't get my head around that, because, yeah, just as a person of faith, it doesn't sit well with me. Actually, there was order, and then we messed it up, and that brought chaos.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that don't want to get into anything religious, so we'll leave that there. But I'm just saying that's the reason that I struggle with that different take on the creation myth. And it's one of the problems I have with superheroes. One of the reasons I love Batman as a character so much is because it's down to earth. It's about as real as you can get with these kind of characters. And so they don't rewrite, you know, the creation of the universe kind of thing. Whereas like in DC Comics or in Marvel Comics, any of them, you have characters who on their own, yeah, something like that might work. If we live in a world where the Green Lantern Corps is the only group of, you know, superheroes or whatever, then fine, you go back to the beginning and you create your own creation myth. But then, if you're going to put them alongside other characters with superpowers that also have their own versions of the creation and how the world began, and you can't then tell us that they're, that they both can exist. They can't both exist.
Right.
So I always struggle with things like that in the DC universe or in the Marvel universe, because it kind of clashes with any of the other characters and what they might have to say about it. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is the characters of the Green Lanterns and this film in particular, it's too big. The scope of it is too big. Bring it down. Just scale it down a bit. Make it a bit more about the characters, a bit more about internal struggles, and less about big galactic events that just end up in big, loud fight scenes in weightless space. I got bored. I just got bored.
And the funny part is, now that you're saying that, one of the other things that I do take away from this movie is that after you finally have those 6 stories done, you're like, oh yeah, they're waiting for this gigantic thing named Kratos to show up. Oh yeah, this is all supposed to come together in a battle against Kratos. And of course, significant piece of those interlocking stories was just to let everybody know about who Mogo was, because it is Mogo pretty much saves the day at the end, But, what really upsets me is the fact that this is my problem, not with DC and this animation division. This is my issue with Warner Brothers. It's like, you are trying to compete with Marvel, who is way ahead of you right now. Yes, congratulations for conquering the small screen with all of your television shows, animated and non. You've done a great job. But why do you keep screwing up why do you keep screwing up these films? I don't understand. You want more people to know that there is more heroes outside of the DC universe besides Superman and Batman. Like, they could have made a truly successful film if they would have just gone in a different direction with this Green Lantern movie, because First Flight was good.
Yeah,
it was a very good Training Day-like film.
Mm-hmm.
And the live action movie with Ryan Reynolds just bombed tremendously because they just didn't go in the right direction. And that's why every single time anything from DC, when it comes to the big screen, is being released, I am always so skeptical. I mean, I've loved all of the DCEU films that have come out, even had fun with Suicide Squad, but my nerves are on edge right now with Wonder Woman and Justice League. I'm like, do not, and I repeat, do not screw this up for me. Please don't. And even in the animation world, Green Lantern is one of my favorites. It really is, because I love the story, I love the mythos, I love the characters, and I want to know these characters. And props to them for letting me see this. But Green Lantern, especially now, has become such a much bigger and vaster universe, especially now with all of the cores. And Blackest Night and Brightest Day were 2 of the stories that have hit comic books in DC for decades. And I'm like, why are you not capitalizing on that? Or why are you not making a movie out of Sinestro Corps War? Like, so much in Green Lantern's mythos to use, and yet they're just not doing it. And we just get little pieces of fluff like Emerald Knights. I mean, there are still some entertaining parts. And one of the other things I did want to say was, I also do love Wade Williams voicing Deegan, the drill sergeant. I thought that he really brought a great character to the Kilowog story, but I wasn't really the biggest fan of the Kilowog story as a whole. It just was pretty much a big miss for me. But again, are a couple of things, but not enough to truly call this one of the better films in the library. If I'm going to rate it, I'm giving it like maybe, I don't think it deserves any, 2 out of 4. I don't think it deserves a 1.5. I think that's just too cruel.
Yeah, no, I mean, I gave this a 2.5 out of 5. Like I say, there's a couple of the stories that on their own would work quite well as what you call it, it's the little short, the showcase
Yeah.
things. You know, if you took that Lyra's first mission, that'd work well as a showcase. If you took the story about the planet Green Lantern, that'd work well as a showcase.
Mhm.
But you're delivering that to me as a feature film, part of a feature film. Not good enough. Not good enough. So 2.5 out of 5 for me. So we both pretty much give this
Yeah.
straight down the middle. But for me, it's so far it's been the worst film in the DC animated movies. Just a quick shout out to CP there in the comments, who says he's rummaging through a bag of crisps whilst near a microphone in my honour. For anyone who is aware, yes, that's one of the dirty habits he has that really annoys me every time we're on a Google Hangout together. So there you go.
Yeah, I do. I don't really watch his show that often, but I do know who he is. He's one of the more prestigious people in the film community here on YouTube. So I'm glad that he's here watching us. I'm hoping that he's enjoying himself. But yeah, so this is definitely. I just hope that after this blunder, that we don't get any more of those interlocking shorts. You know.
Yeah.
I don't think that we should get any more of those at this point in time. But now let's talk about, to me, was probably one of the biggest surprises, and that is Justice League Doom. And it's got two good things going for it right off the bat. It's the last script that was written by Dwayne McDuffie. That's number one. And number two, it's directed by Lauren Montgomery. And third time's a charm. If you want to throw the third big thing in, you've got a lot of the original voices of the DC characters. You've got Kevin Conroy as Batman. You've got Tim Daly back as Superman. Susan Eisenberg as Wonder Woman. You got Carl Lumbly back as the Martian Manhunter. You got Michael Rosenbaum back as the Flash. You've got newcomer Bumper Robinson as Cyborg. And you've got Nathan Fillion back as the Hal Jordan Green Lantern, not as the John Stewart Green Lantern. And to some people would consider this a sort of an unofficial sequel to Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. Not necessarily, but you could sort of feel where you could put that in there to a certain degree. But I don't know about you, but this is definitely a very standout and very unique Justice League film.
It's certainly the best film we're reviewing today.
I will agree there.
Helped in no small part by the fact that it's got Batman in it. Yeah, you're always going to win brownie points from me when you focus a bit more on Batman. But
of course.
I just think that the story as well is one that's quite intriguing. I love this idea of Batman coming up with all these different ways to take out the Justice League, and then having someone steal those plans and use them against the Justice League. It shows, again, the intellect of Batman as a character, shows how formidable he is, that he has able to come up with something that can take all these guys down. And two, it's just damn entertaining seeing essentially Batman go up against the Justice League, although not head on, so to speak. But yeah, I really liked this one. Really liked it.
Yeah, and one of the few things that I will say, as we said when we were discussing All-Star Superman, it brings a lot of the human factor in here, especially when it comes to each and every one of the heroes. And I mean, for me, there's also a lot of nostalgia in this one too, because at the beginning, they're fighting the Royal Flush Gang. And that's right out of Batman Beyond for me. And Justice League to a certain degree. So that was really cool to watch. And it was a really fun opening battle sequence. I really had fun with it. But then on top of that, you bring in the Legion of Doom. You know, it's not your dad's Legion of Doom. There's a whole bunch of characters that actually, out of all of the characters that were in this Legion of Doom, there was only one from the original lineup in the Challenge of the Super Friends cartoon from 1973, and that's Cheetah. But you got some really great, truly polar opposites who just freaking hate these heroes. I mean, first they're run by Vandal Savage. I mean, Lex Luthor is the original Legion of Doom leader. And then in Justice League Unlimited, you had Gorilla Grodd, which was pretty awesome too. But then you've got Vandal Savage, and this guy is one of the scariest villains in DC right now. And you get Mirror Master, Star Sapphire, Metallo, Cheetah, Bane. Like, you've got some really heavy hitters, not so known to the casual watcher, but to comic book fans. Like, they know who these villains are. And getting those plans. Oh yeah, and Malitha Ak. I keep forgetting about Malitha Ak, who, ironically, Carl Lumbly actually voices both the hero and the villain. So that's actually pretty cool. But yeah, I really appreciated how deep they went into the superhero psyche. That's what I really appreciated about this. I mean, Superman's, and that's what's even more interesting. Ironically, if you think about it, it's actually interlocking stories, but it's done so much better.
Well, it's because there's a main thread that runs throughout all of them.
Exactly.
Whereas, so it doesn't feel disjointed like Emerald Knights did. I just noticed in my notes, actually, I made a comment earlier for All-Star Superman about Superman killing Metallo. Not in that film. It was in this one.
Yeah, it was in this one?
Yeah. In All-Star Superman, there was a scene with Metallo in a cell, and he was lifting weights.
Right, that's
and my question was, why the hell does Metallo need to lift weights? He's an android. You know, it was just such a random scene. But yeah, the scene in which he kills Metallo is actually in this film. So again, like I say, two separate films in which Superman has basically killed someone. So, but some really good lines of dialogue, some exchanges.
Absolutely.
Between Batman to Green Lantern, when Green Lantern says that it's 7-5 or something like that, and Batman says, "We keeping score now, because if we are, it's 8-7 in my favor." So yeah, just like, Batman just owning Green Lantern basically. So, oh yeah, and Superman kills Ace as well.
My personal favorite is when when Batman calls Alfred, he says, "The Justice League is under attack," and Alfred goes, "By who, sir?" "By me!" Yeah. Like, I just like that line a lot. But my favorite scene in the movie is when Vandal Savage is explaining his immortality to the other villains, and he's like, "Go ahead, try and kill me," and then just Cheetah flashes him across the face. Like, and the animation of the blood splatter is fantastic. Like, I like that scene. It's just a beautifully animated sequence. I like that. I think Bane's got a good line in there too. Like, I like first I broke the bat and now I break the man. Like, I like that.
Yeah, again, we've got, like we said, we've got Lauren Montgomery on directing duty, and she really is. I think she's my favorite director out of the ones who've done these animated movies.
I will agree. I will agree with you.
Her Wonder Woman film is still my favorite of the DC animated movies overall. But I love the way she directs fight scenes, and particularly when she's doing two female characters fighting each other, she really goes to town on it, and like, you can tell she's putting her stamp on it. Visually, it's just cracking. The fight scene towards the end of the film between Wonder Woman and Cheetah is a particular standout. Some of the angles that's shot from, and the way it's drawn, and the leaps that they're doing, really fluid, and yeah, it looks like really good kind of manga. The way that it's done. So yeah, again, like I say, she's on the ball when it comes to directing on this.
Yeah, and yeah, and you see, and of course, it's like we said in our last episode. It may not have been the best film in the library, but the action sequences in Batman, Superman, Apocalypse are just beautiful, and that's because she's behind the director. She's in the director's chair for that, and also the action sequences in Wonder Woman, and even in Green Lantern's First Flight. Those movies are all directed by her, and you're absolutely right. You see it in the storytelling, you see it in the lines of dialogue, and you absolutely see it in the animation as well. It's beautiful. I feel that in the last couple of films that we have gotten in the last few years, I honestly have no idea what happened to her. I don't know where she is right now, but she has not been directing any of these films lately,
No.
and it shows.
It's like they've ditched her they've got two now, haven't they? They've got Jay Oliver and Sam Liu.
Yeah, Sam Liu, yeah.
Those two seem to be the only ones who seem to be directing them these days, and I like some of the work they've done, but personally, I wish they'd bring Montgomery back, because I think she's done a really good job. Patrick just asks, which film are we talking about at the moment? We're talking about Justice League Doom, and we will be talking about Superman versus the Elite shortly. But yeah, Justice League Doom. There are a couple of things.
And don't worry, this one will be back. This will be recorded. Will be on both channels. This will be up for everybody to see after we're done recording, my friends. So don't worry, you will be able to catch everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, couple of things that I don't quite like about the film, and this seems to be a problem that's quite inherent at the moment with the way they bring Bane to the screen, with the exception of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight Rises, which is that he gets taken out far too easily. You know, Bane went from being the man who broke the Bat, you know?
Yeah.
He broke him. And I don't like how they've made the venom that he uses like his only strength. Like, without the venom, he's nothing, essentially. And that's just not the case. Like, even before the venom, even before Bane had venom, you're talking about a man who ran a prison, one of the harshest prisons on the planet. And he, you know, there's a moment in Vengeance of Bane, the first story that he appeared in, where he takes out half the prison. They all attack him, and he does them all over, and he's not on venom at that point, you know. So this idea that Bane, you know, you cut his pipe, you cut his feed to the venom, and boom, that's it, he's done. It kind of annoys me. I think it betrays the original, the character as he was originally created, way back when he appeared in Vengeance of Bane and when he was in that Nightfall storyline. So yeah, that's something I wish they'd get away from. Not also not forgetting the fact that after the Nightfall thing, because Bane did feel dependent on Venom, he got rid of it. He came off it. He overcame it and became a formidable foe without it completely. So yeah, it does annoy me the way he gets taken out in this film. It's just a bit too easy. It kind of pussifies Bane a little bit, which I don't like, because for me, he should be Batman's strongest villain, physically speaking, with or without the venom.
Well, Patrick Holmes just said that Lauren Montgomery doesn't work for them, most likely. That's the reason why she's not making any more directorials on these films, which would make total sense. What a pity, really.
Yeah,
pity.
It really is a shame, because I think she was the best one they had, to be honest.
Absolutely, I agree. Anyway, as you were.
The only other, well, maybe a couple of others, but nothing too big. But the only other one that kind of is a minor criticism is while everyone else seems to get these pretty meaty character arcs and like conflicts between each other, you've got the conflict between Green Lantern and Star Sapphire that is essentially distilled down to what amounts to nothing more than a lover's tiff, really. There's a line of dialogue where she says to Jordan, "You hurt me, Jordan. You broke my heart, and I'll never stop trying to hurt you back." I don't like that line of dialogue. It's really clunky, really heavy-handed. And like I say, it essentially turns one of Green Lantern's main villains into nothing more than a
lover's quarrel.
Yeah, you know, like
well,
high school girlfriend.
Isn't that what it's supposed to be? I mean, that's one of the few things that I will see. I see where you're coming from there, and that's one of the few things that I really do not know much about. Like, I still want to know how. I don't really know how Carol Ferris became Star Sapphire, because it's so confusing, because she's been portrayed in the animated world of DC a while now. Like, she has shown up a lot. And even when they had Carol don the Star Sapphire ring in the animated series that was short-lived, it still didn't make any sense. It was like, she got the ring, and now she hates Hal. I'm like, how does that happen? Just because of the fact that he's a million light years away across the galaxy fighting crime? This is the fact that he's, like, you're seriously being a self-centered bitch? Pardon my French?
Yeah, that's basically how it amounts to. And I've got no problem with like a hero villain relationship being down to like like disgruntled lovers, so to speak. But I think there are ways to handle it which are better. If you look at Talia al Ghul and Batman, there's a lot going on there politically and religiously, and the relationship between her and her father and to Batman. And it's so, yes, they're lovers, but they're enemies. But there's so much more tied up in that.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it becomes like, by the time you get to the end and you're searching for motivation, Star Sapphire's motivation, it seems to be nothing more than, "Oh, you spurned me once, and now I will spend the rest of my days trying to hurt you back." And you're just like, all right, grow up.
Yeah. No, I see that. I totally do. I mean, I look at that whole event on a different angle, because, you see, you're looking at it from Star Sapphire's perspective. I'm looking at it from Hal Jordan's perspective, and what I really see is, like, this is Hal Jordan when he officially loses his will. And that's just, that whole end of it is very powerful for me, but I see where you're coming from the other side. I think one of the weakest parts of this story is Flash. I feel that they do not give Flash enough in terms of what happens with him, because when it comes to DC and when it comes to the Rogues galleries, Batman will always be number one, but I think that the Flash is a close second. I really like his Rogues gallery. And it again reminds me of one of the last episodes of Justice League Unlimited, where you had Mirror Master, Captain Cold, the Trickster, and another villain who I just can't see. Oh yeah, Captain Boomerang. It was those four members of his Rogues gallery just ganging up on the Flash. Like, I think his Rogues gallery is fun. And we didn't, and I love the animation on Mirror Master in this movie. I love how he is see-through. I think that is beautiful. But I feel that we didn't get enough of him. I wanted to see more Mirror Master, because Mirror Master is one of his villains that truly hates Flash. Like, he despises Flash. He wants to kill him. I don't see characters like the Trickster wanting to kill the Flash, but I know that Mirror Master is out for blood. And you even see that in the television show right now, where Mirror Master has already shown up in 2 episodes. You can tell alongside Captain Cold, Mirror Master just hates him. And I feel that they could have done so much more with Flash's story. They basically he basically was Speed on Foot. The movie Speed on Foot. Basically, if you stop running at this amount of miles per hour, that bomb on your wrist is going to explode.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell Batman's just sat up late one night. He's watched Speed, and he's like,
Yeah.
Yes.
But that was see something. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe they threw that in there. Maybe they should have thrown that in there, like saying, "How did you know all this about us?" And then like Flash goes, "Well, what about me?" He goes, I was up late one night and I was watching Speed and I thought of you." Like I could see that happening, and I could see Kevin Conroy saying that as Batman.
Definitely. One scene that I thought was real badass was what Bane does to Bruce when he buries him with his parents.
Yes.
It's like there's
that shows you how much Bane knows his enemy, and that's what makes him such a brilliant villain.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like Bane's not just about brute strength; he's also about intelligence. And it's just there's a line that you definitely don't cross with Batman, and it's to do with his parents.
Absolutely.
The moment you bring his parents into anything, you're really going to set him off. So yeah, just seeing that Bane goes to that place. It's quite twisted, it's quite dark, and it's really fun to watch. And,
that Patrick Holmes asking us, what do we think of The Dark Knight Returns Parts 1 and 2? I'm writing him by saying, that'll be in the next episode.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about them, mate, just because we are going through them all. So the next time we do one of these shows, we are going to be talking about both the Dark Knight Returns Parts 1 and 2 and Batman Year One. So you'll definitely want to tune in for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, to capture more of the nostalgia, I liked how the movie ended. I liked how they had them all in the conference room and how Batman really was ready to walk out. Like, I liked that because he is... I appreciated the fact that he didn't say that he was sorry. Because even though these people are his friends, he knows that he doesn't have powers. And if that day ever came that they did not want to fight for the forces of good anymore, I have to stop them. And I really appreciated the fact that he stuck to his guns, even though he betrayed everybody's trust. But I feel that he betrayed everybody's trust for good reason.
I don't even think he betrayed everybody's trust. I think he was right to do what he did. It's not like he's put that. It's not like he's come up with that plan because he intends to use it regardless of whether they go rogue. You know, it's a last measure. And Superman acknowledges that. You know, he comes out and he gives him the kryptonite because he knows fully well that Batman's in the right on that one.
Absolutely.
You know, and Batman can be a bit of a douche at times.
Yes,
we've seen that in previous films in this, but in this case, absolutely not. He's a human being, and he's dealing with, on a day-to-day basis, he's dealing with people who could potentially destroy the world if they went rogue. So he would be an idiot not to have a backup plan to bring these guys down. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm definitely with Batman on this one. But yeah, I mean, like, I just say, what's your overall thoughts on the film then?
I think that it's definitely something that deserves a few watches because it's a very deep story. I think it's one of the deeper stories that we have here. Overall, I think it's a very well done one. I always appreciate whether it's a director or a writer or an actor when they unfortunately leave us, when they leave and their last project is just so embraced by the public. So for this to be Dwayne McDuffie's final piece to give us, I think that he couldn't have gone on a better high note. I mean, like I said, I like All-Star Superman, but this one is a very well done film overall. I would give this one, minus its faults, almost near perfect, but I give it a strong 3.5 out of 4.
Yeah, I really like this. Again, you're always going to help me out when you've got Batman in the mix, but I just like the story. I like the idea that of what Batman's done, and again, like the direction by Montgomery, really great action sequences, and it's all just tied together really nicely. I want to give this a 4 out of 5. Really good one. I really like this one.
Okay, so we're approaching our last half hour, and I hate to say that we're going to be going on probably an extreme negative note here, but the last film that we're going to be discussing is probably one of the most outlandish in the series, and that is directed by Michael Chang, who has never done another directorial in this group of films, and most likely for good reason. Let's talk about Superman versus the Elite.
Oh.
Here we go.
I've got 3 pages of notes on this one.
Oh, he's right. Patrick actually made a very big point. We forgot to mention the fact that Batman even had a plan for himself. That was also pretty incredible.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. I appreciate you letting us remind us of that. That was very good to know. We completely forgot about that. But anyway, Brian's getting to his notes here because I am sensing many a word to be said.
Oh man, another nod to Man of Steel, by the way. The beginning of this film, when we see Superman throwing Atomic Skull around, it makes me think of the people who give Man of Steel a load of stick, because once again, he's doing it here. But nobody complains. My biggest problem with this, in fact, the thing that stops me saying that this is a good movie, because if I take this part out of it, or if I just recast someone, I would give this film an extra whole star.
Okay.
But Manchester Black, what the hell?
Robert Atkin Downs has done a lot of work for DC before, so.
Oh, I don't know what accent he's trying to pull off.
Oh boy!
In this film,
he's officially touched a nerve.
But it is not any kind of accent I know of as being British. The thing is, this guy is British.
Yes, he is. He's from London.
He was born and raised in England. So I'm listening to it and I'm like, where are you from? Because one minute you sound like a Londoner, then you sound like you're a Scouser, then you sound like you're a Manc from Manchester. I cannot get a read on this guy's accent and where he's from. And it drives me nuts. Because every time he speaks throughout this film, I can't engage with what's going on because I'm just trying to figure out what the hell that accent is. Really bad casting. We get a bit preachy at the beginning. There's a scene. It's at the hearing, so there's this kind of government hearing thing going on, and Superman yeah, Superman gives this big speech about how he should use his powers, and they're saying, well, why don't you fix the world's problems? And he's like, I can never use my powers.
They had to throw a little bit of a tribute to Superman 4 Quest for Peace somewhere in this library,
Dial it down a bit, it's just, yeah. But there's this whole speech about, should he take it upon himself to clean up the world? Is humanity hopeless? And it's just like yawn, yawn. Yeah. I'm like, we've heard all this before so many times. This is the big thing Superman wrestles with. I'm so powerful, I could clean everything up, but should I? And I don't mind them setting that up as a part of the themes of the film, but they really, really lay it on thick during this scene. Yeah, I don't like Superman's design. Don't like the character design.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that when it's my turn to speak. That I'm going to talk about for sure.
His eyes are a bit bulgy. Is all I can say. His eyes just like, they just look like they're popping out of his head at times. We go to this made-up foreign country where Superman fights these monsters.
Yeah, that country has been in many of the DC shows already.
Yeah, I'm just seeing Superman fight these monsters. Boring, really boring.
Yeah,
I've seen this before, like in the animated series and things like that, where you just get some. Just it's getting late. I'm losing my trains of thought, but
yeah, it's okay.
There's no real kind of invention there within the design of the monster. It's generic. That's the word I'm looking for. He fights a generic monster, and yeah, I'm just not interested. I'm not engaged with that scene because it's not an actual villain. It's not someone from his rogues gallery that we know their backstory and can engage with in some way. It's just a random monster that they needed for this particular moment in time for Superman to fight, and it's boring. That's plain and simple. There's a Wrath of Khan earwig moment.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Like these, I believe these characters are also. This story has been adapted from something that was in some comic books.
Yeah, the original source material was the original name of the story was Superman: What's So Great About Truth, Justice, and the American Way.
Right. Okay.
I mean, for me, it's definitely a major step down in terms of everything that they have given us already. Although, to its defense, and when I say that, I mean ever so slightly, what I do appreciate about this film is that they really attack the whole reason why so many people hate Superman. And it's because he's a freaking Boy Scout. So the concept of the fact that here's this new group of anti-heroes, so to speak, because they're not trying to be villains. They're just being heroes, but at the same time being judge, jury, and executioner all at the same time. But they're fighting for the good cause.
Yeah.
And so you've got these guys that are literally testing Superman, and they're not even trying to be subtle. Like, they're really testing him. And they're basically saying throughout the entire movie, like, what is it that's going to push Superman over the edge and finally have him lose his mind? And honestly, when he does finally lose his mind, because you've seen the movie, you know what that means, it's kind of scary and at the same time over the top, and that's what makes it so cheesy. And that's just the way that I look at it. But I thought it was a terrible way to bring George Newbern back to voice Superman again. I felt so bad for him because I love him in Superman as in Justice League as well as in Superman Shazam. I think that one of the highlights was Paulie Perrette as Lois Lane. I did like her because people who watch her on television, I mean, like, her claim to fame is NCIS. Everybody loves her on that show. And she definitely has the spunk that Lois always had, so getting her to voice was really good. Robert Atkin Downs as Manchester Black, it's not so much the voice, it's more so the character, and the character is just not something that I really give a crap about. I really don't. And even Atomic Skull, I mean, D. Bradley Baker, who's one of the most well-known in all of voice acting, I don't really care for him either. I'll tell you who I do not like. I do not like Menagerie, that demon girl that was part of the Elite. I thought that she was so stupid. And the dialogue that was written for her was so horrible. Like the line where she goes, makes everyone go nappy time. Like, who the hell are you? Are you Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle? Like, what the hell is this? Like, I was just, this was just such a step down. And everything about this movie just screams step down. It really does. I appreciate the edginess, though.
Even the name, Manchester Black. Oh, we get it. Yeah. He's from England and he's evil. Manchester Black. It's like, good grief. It's like, could you signpost it any clearer? You know, it's like,
and they even try to get raunchy in this movie.
Yeah, I hate the stereotypes as well of the UK. I don't know. Is this how Americans see Brits? I don't know, because when I look at Manchester Black and when I hear him talking and when they go to the streets of England, when he's talking about his past, it just all seems like stereotype Britain. It feels like real kind of, it just, I cringe. I cringe the whole time. Another thing is...
I'll answer that question for you. Sorry to cut you off. As an American speaking to someone from that side of the pond, I will say that I do not look at British people like that. As a matter of fact, I actually admire the British and their culture. I personally just appreciate the elegance of everything that the country has. Like, I love seeing the streets of London. It's just a beautiful thing. I mean, look, I live close to New York City. That's an incredible city. But London is just something truly different and something truly special. And as far as anyone would say, as far as stereotypical Brits, like soccer hooligans and stuff like that, come to America or even come to Canada and go see a hockey game live. It's pretty much the exact same thing.
Wow.
We're more similar than we are different. That's all I'm going to say.
And it's like he uses the word wankers a lot in this film. It's like, I don't know if you know what that means.
Well, I know that it's obviously like a negative name to call somebody. It's like calling someone. It's like walking around in America and calling people assholes.
It means to masturbate.
That I also believe. I actually think I knew that.
That's what it means.
Think about
so it's like it boggles my mind that they get away with using that because I know that most Americans well, you don't use that word in America, so
nope.
You kind of like.
Well, I mean,
what?
Yeah.
Like I know in America when you say
they call them fags.
Pardon?
In England, I'm sure it's England. They call cigarettes fags.
Yeah. And in America, you call the ass fanny.
Yeah, that's right. They call it a fanny in the UK. But no, sometimes we call it a fanny. Sometimes we do. Sometimes
no. No, I mean, like in the US, you call the bum the fanny, whereas over here, fanny is the ladies' private parts.
Yes.
So when, like, I remember the first time I heard that word in an American context, and it was in the program called Roseanne, and somebody said, he hit me on the fanny, and I was like, what? Because like over here, that meant he hit her in the vagina.
Yeah, this is one of the problems with American culture. There are so many slang words in this country for the human rear. It's disgusting. How horrible our culture is. When we have 10 words at minimum to describe a human being's rear, that says a lot.
but yeah, so every time he says wankers, I'm just like, man, they're laying that on thick. I don't actually know. I can't remember the last time I heard that word over here in the UK. I think it was a very kind of 90s thing that doesn't tend to get used that much now. Certainly I've not heard it for a good long while. So when he's just spouting it off all the time in this, I'm just like, oh man, this feels like somebody's idea of what a Brit is rather than a genuine character that is British. So yeah, but I will say I do like the ending.
Yes. So yes, I was going to ask you that.
The big setup, yeah, the big showdown, what Superman does, the way he scares them, the way he owns this group. I love all that stuff. And the story itself, I like the setup. I like the story. I like the idea of these characters. I just hate their execution.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It could have been a much better story, I think. Because a lot of the themes.
Manchester Black Sister as well. Manchester Black Sister should have been in this more.
Yes, I agree. I feel that there was so much more for her in there. Yes,
there really was. Like we get one scene in which she's kind of hiding behind a wall, and then we get other information about her is what we get told through other characters. And then it's like, well, actually, she should really be quite a big player in this film. She should be someone who could try and talk Manchester Black down.
Yes.
But so it's it just wasted really.
No, the whole movie is wasted. Because it's it's like the theme, the overall theme of the film is exactly what is the proper way today to uphold the law. Because they do send some very important messages that you can totally take today, because crime has taken on a whole new thing. It's like, it's not just about people in trench coats and masks over their faces robbing jewelry stores anymore. And now there's murder, there's rape, there's terrorism now. Crime has become a whole new animal, and just basically taking a criminal, throwing them in a jail cell, and then just like standing with your hands on your hips saying, remember, crime doesn't pay, boys and girls. Like that's Superman. That's the old school Superman. That's not the way it's supposed to be anymore. So the message is there, but it's just overall poorly executed.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were going to say something.
No, I was literally just going to say, look, I'm ready to wrap this up. I
agree.
I think there's a good film in here somewhere, but they haven't delivered it with this one. I'm going to say,
I agree.
I think it's got some good ideas. I think there's some good action sequences, set pieces. I think the last 10 minutes is really strong, but it's just not enough to save it from characters that really annoy me. So I'm going to give this a 2.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm giving this one a 1.5 out of 4. This is just, look, I own all these movies. I will still watch this one every now and again, because like you said, there are still some fun things in there to be had. But like you said, the last 10 minutes, while it's great, it's too little too late. Anyway, that sums it up. You look like you're ready to pass out, so I don't really want to keep you on here any longer. We're actually way ahead of time. We're not going to need the total 2 hours, but you want to know something? I have no issue with that. We got what we had to say out there. Once again, it was a great thing to do today with you, and I wish Melissa would have been here because she would have had some fun. But everyone who's still watching now, just be prepared because we've got another episode coming up in sometime in the middle of the summer. And I will make sure that Brian helps me work on my technology here and make sure that we are actually going to have this in my channel where it's supposed to be, even though I do not mind Brian hosting. It's no big deal whatsoever. But
although to be honest, with it being our Batman show,
yes, maybe we should keep it there.
Yeah, I'd be quite happy for it to be on my channel.
Because there are still 3 more films in this group of films that we need to discuss, and Brian said that these 3 films needed their own episode because it's Batman, but not only is it Batman, it's Frank Miller Batman. We're going to be talking about Batman Year One, and we're going to be talking about both installments of The Dark Knight Returns parts, and we're going to break them down into parts 1 and 2 because there's so much to say about these films. And Melissa said that she will not miss this. She wants to be here and she wants to talk about it because she loves Batman, and we are just going to have a great deal of fun with this, and I'm looking forward to discussing these movies with you, my friend. I really am.
Yeah. So that's about it from us. Thank you to everyone who's joined us live tonight in the comments. And if you're watching this after the fact, please do feel free to comment below and let us know your thoughts on any of the films we've discussed tonight.
Absolutely.
But until next time, it's goodbye from Steve.
Bye-bye.